Have you ever seen a room so quiet it felt like even the walls were holding their breath? That's exactly how the pediatric ICU felt at 12:32 p.m. on that heavy Thursday, the day a father's world balanced between love and loss. The air smelled of antiseptic, the hum of machines was steady, and on a narrow hospital bed lay 9-year-old Liana Brooks, a little girl wrapped in a pink blanket dotted with cartoon stars. She hadn't moved, spoken, or opened her eyes for over 7 long days. One moment, she was laughing over pancakes with her father, Malcolm Brooks. The next, she collapsed, tying her shoes. Doctors called it an acute cerebral shutdown, a rare, cruel twist of fate that even the best pediatric neurologists couldn't fully explain. Malcolm, a construction foreman whose hands had lifted steel beams and poured concrete deep into the earth, now sat helplessly by his daughter's side, holding a hand that didn't squeeze back. He had built bridges, towers, and homes, but nothing had ever felt as impossible as this fight. Specialists flew in from across the globe. Machines beeped. Charts filled. But progress? None. Hope started eroding like sand under relentless waves. Then came Victor Harlow, a billionaire tech mogul who owned half the hospitals in the state. He arrived with his PR team and security detail, wearing a smug half-smile and designer sunglasses that seemed absurd under hospital lights. He'd read about Liana in a local paper and saw an opportunity rather than a tragedy. "I can give you the best tech in the world, Mr. Brooks," Harlow said. "AI diagnostics, neuro reboots, experimental procedures, all free of charge." Malcolm asked the only question that mattered. "Will it bring her back?" Harlow chuckled. "We'll upgrade her brain like an iPhone." That was the moment Malcolm's jaw tightened. "She's not a machine. She's my daughter." But desperation wins over pride when it's your child. So Malcolm let Harlow try. For 3 days, they strapped VR headsets over her closed eyes, pumped waves of light and sound into her world, ran cutting-edge simulations. Nothing. Not a twitch. Not a flicker. By Sunday night, Harlow stopped showing up. The expensive machines were wheeled away quietly, and the room felt even colder. But Malcolm stayed. He read Liana's favorite bedtime stories, played her favorite lullabies from his phone, rubbed lotion into her small feet, told her about the stars and planets she loved. It was close to midnight when a nurse tapped on the glass. "Mr. Brooks, there's a boy in the lobby, says he can help your daughter." A boy? Sitting alone on the cold bench was a barefoot black child, maybe 11 years old, drowning in a frayed gray hoodie and ripped jeans. Dirt smudged his face, but his eyes, deep, steady, and unsettlingly calm, stopped Malcolm in his tracks. "You Liana's father?" the boy asked. "Yes. Who are you?" "Doesn't matter. I know how to wake her up." It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't hope. It was certainty. Malcolm almost laughed. "Kid, doctors couldn't help her. A billionaire couldn't help her." The boy just said quietly, "She's not gone. She's just far away. She doesn't know if it's safe to come back. You have to give her the one thing this hospital doesn't have." "What's that?" "Your pain. Your truth. The words you've been hiding." Something in Malcolm broke. He walked the boy into Liana's room. The boy placed a hand on her forehead, closed his eyes, then nodded. "Now you. Tell her why you're still here." Malcolm's voice trembled as words poured out, the ones he had buried under strength. "I wasn't there, baby. I should have seen something was wrong. I should have held you longer that morning. I should have told you I was proud of you." Tears splashed onto her blanket. And then, just once, the heart monitor blipped faster. The boy smiled faintly. "She's listening." And before Malcolm could ask more, the boy walked out barefoot into the night. The next morning, sunlight crept weakly through the blinds of room 214. Malcolm hadn't slept a single minute. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard that boy's voice in his head. "She's listening." It wasn't just a memory. It felt like a command, an unshakable truth. And in the quiet hours before dawn, he swore he saw Liana's index finger twitch. It was faint, almost like a ghost of movement, but to him it was as real as his own heartbeat. When the morning shift nurse came in, he told her. She gave him a sympathetic smile. the kind people give when they think grief has taken over reason. It's possible you imagined it, she said gently, but Malcolm knew better. He had felt something change in the room last night when the boy was there. It was later that afternoon when the door opened again. Malcolm looked up sharply, his chest tightening. Standing there was the same barefoot boy in the frayed gray hoodie, jeans torn at the knees, and those deep, still eyes that seemed older than his face. "I told you I'd come back," the boy said calmly, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Malcolm almost stumbled to his feet. "Where do you go when you leave?" "Who are you?" "I go where I'm needed," the boy replied, "and I'm someone who remembers what others forget." He stepped to Liana's bedside without hesitation and placed his small hand over her wrist. His eyes closed briefly, as though he was listening to something beyond the steady beep of the machines. Then he opened them and looked at Malcolm. "She's closer today." Malcolm's voice dropped to a whisper. "Closer?" "Your voice reached her yesterday," the boy explained, "but now she needs something else." Malcolm felt a knot in his chest. "What is it?" "The song," the boy said. Malcolm froze in place, unsure if he had heard correctly. "The one you used to sing before the fire," the boy continued, his voice steady but soft, "before everything went quiet." Malcolm's throat tightened instantly. He knew exactly which song the boy meant. It was a lullaby his grandmother had sung to him when he was a scared little boy, the same one he had sung to Liana countless times before his wife died. "There's light in the shadows and stars in the rain. Hold on, little dreamer. You'll fly once again." He hadn't sung it since the day they buried his wife. I can't," Malcolm murmured, his voice breaking. "Yes, you can," the boy said gently. "She still remembers it, and so do you." Malcolm's chest felt heavy, but as he looked at his daughter, her pale face, her still lips, something inside him began to push back against the years of silence. In his mind, he was suddenly back in their small living room, yellow curtains swaying with the breeze. Liana curled on his lap, eyes closed, her tiny chest rising and falling as he hummed her to sleep. He pulled his chair closer to the bed, took her limp hand in his and cleared his throat. His voice trembled on the first note, but he kept going. "There's light in the shadows and stars in the rain. Hold on, little dreamer. You'll fly once again." His voice cracked in places, but the words poured out, pulled by something deeper than memory. As he sang, the heart monitor began to change, slow, steady increases in rhythm. Then Liana's fingers twitched, once, then again. The nurse, who had been quietly checking vitals, gasped aloud, but the boy didn't look at the machines. He kept his gaze fixed on Malcolm. "You gave her something to come back to," he said. "Now she knows the way." Malcolm blinked away tears. "Why are you helping us? You don't even know us." The boy met his eyes with a depth that made Malcolm feel as if he were being weighed. "You're wrong. I know her heart. I was once a child in a bed like this, alone, afraid. No one came. No one sang. I promised myself, if I ever could, I'd change that for someone else." Malcolm's throat tightened again. You're like an angel." The boy didn't answer that. Instead, he leaned down toward Liana, brushed a hand gently over her hair, and whispered, "You've been found." Then he turned toward the door. "Will you come back tomorrow?" Malcolm asked quickly. The boy paused for a moment, glancing back. "If she needs me, yes, but I think your voice is stronger now." Malcolm stood abruptly and rushed to the hallway after him. But just like before, the boy was gone. The corridor was empty, silent except for the distant hum of hospital equipment. No doors had opened. No footsteps echoed. This time, Malcolm didn't just feel shaken. He felt something he hadn't felt in days. Hope. Malcolm didn't leave his daughter's side that night. The boy's words stayed with him, echoing in the hollow places of his heart. If his voice could reach her, he would not let a single hour pass in silence. All through the night, he sang that same lullaby, sometimes barely above a whisper, sometimes with every bit of strength he had left. He sang until his voice was ragged and his eyes were red from crying. By dawn, something had changed. It wasn't dramatic, not at first, just a softer look to her face, the faintest movement of her lips as if she were dreaming. The heart monitor showed her pulse holding steady. And then, at 6:02 a.m., it happened. Liana's small right hand, limp for over a week, shifted toward him and wrapped weakly around two of his fingers. Malcolm froze, his breath caught halfway in his chest. "Liana? Baby girl?" He leaned forward, his tears falling freely now. It wasn't a reflex. It was her. She was reaching for him. The nurses rushed in, and the room filled with a flurry of careful activity. They checked vitals, tested her responses, but the truth was already there in the simple way she held her father's hand. She knew he was there, and she wasn't letting go. One of the doctors, Dr. Reynolds, shook her head in disbelief. "Neurologically, this doesn't make sense. There's been no medication, no surgical intervention. It's unexplainable." Malcolm didn't care about medical explanations anymore. "Call it whatever you want," he said softly, "but I know what I saw." Later that morning, Malcolm stepped out for the first time in days, not because he wanted fresh air, but because he wanted to buy something, a small spiral notebook. He decided that from now on, every story, every song, every truth he had hidden would be written down for Liana. He would never again let her live without knowing his heart. When he returned to the hospital room, he found something taped to the window. It was a small folded note in crooked blue handwriting. Malcolm opened it with trembling hands and read, "Sometimes the healing comes before the waking. Don't stop just because her eyes are closed. She hears you. Keep singing." It was signed with one word, Isaiah. That night, Liana's breathing grew stronger. Her color returned, and at 11:47 p.m., her lips parted. "Daddy!" It was no louder than a breath, but Malcolm heard it like a shout. He dropped the notebook and rushed to her side, cupping her face in both hands. "I'm here, baby. I'm here." Her eyes fluttered open just enough to see him. "You came back," she whispered. "I never left." She smiled faintly, then asked the question that froze him. "Where's the boy?" Malcolm hesitated. You saw him." She nodded. "He found me when I was lost. Said he was the echo that would guide me back to you. He held my hand and told me you were waiting on the other side of the dark." Her eyes filled with tears. "He smelled like bread and laughed like sunlight. He said his name was Isaiah." Malcolm's throat tightened. He didn't know how to answer her. An angel? A messenger? A miracle? Maybe all three. The next morning, the hospital was buzzing. Doctors and nurses whispered in the halls. Reporters called for statements, and no one could explain her sudden recovery. Security footage once again showed no trace of Isaiah entering or leaving. To the world, he didn't exist. But to Malcolm and Liana, he was as real as the ground beneath their feet. Weeks passed, and Liana grew stronger. Malcolm sold his car, his cabin, even some of his investments, not out of loss, but to fund something new, a community center for children facing illness, grief, or trauma. He called it Voices at Dawn, with a simple motto painted on the wall, "Where silence ends and healing begins." The first mural was painted by Liana herself, a barefoot boy in an oversized coat, holding out a hand from the darkness, with music notes swirling around him. At the bottom, she painted in bold blue letters, "He didn't have wings, he had faith." Months later, on a quiet evening walk, Liana spotted a street musician by the old train station. His sign read, "You're not lost. You're just not finished yet." Malcolm's breath caught in his throat. When he asked the musician about it, the man smiled through a grizzled beard. "Heard it from a little boy years ago. Said his name was Isaiah. Played music with me once, then vanished." Liana's face lit up. "Daddy, he's still out there." That night, she stood at her bedroom window looking at the moon. What if Isaiah finds another girl like me? What if she's scared? Malcolm brushed her hair back. "Then I hope someone is singing nearby." She nodded thoughtfully. "We should teach the whole world to sing." And they did. Together, they started sharing her story online, her art, her laughter, and the lullaby that brought her back. They called it Isaiah's Echo. In 2 weeks, it reached millions of people, and messages flooded in from hospital beds, shelters, prison cells, and lonely apartments. Every one of them ended the same way. "I thought I was lost, but maybe I'm just not finished yet." On the 1-year anniversary of her waking, Liana stood on the stage at the Voices at Dawn Center, singing the lullaby Isaiah had told her to remember. Malcolm watched from the back, tears in his eyes. And just for a second, he saw a barefoot boy leaning against the wall smiling. Their eyes met, and then, like always, he was gone. Miracles aren't always thunder and lightning. Sometimes they are dirt under your nails, a father's voice in the dark, or a small hand reaching back from the edge. Sometimes they are a homeless black boy no one believes in, laughing at the impossible until it isn't impossible anymore. And maybe, just maybe, they are the echoes we leave behind in someone else's heart, echoes that keep singing long after we're gone.